Power without discretion is terrifying. I think that's why Zavala is so afraid of Rasputin. The decision of where to direct his insurmountable might is a simple, dispassionate calculus. But now, in the Season of the Worthy, us Guardians have been given a chance to wield that power. The question is, what will our simple but passionate minds do with it? I have a feeling we're gonna blow a lot of stuff up. The Season of the Worthy brought with it a new artifact and a new set of mods. Unfortunately, when the season ends, the artifact will end with it, leaving a void in many players' loadouts. With that in mind, for now, we've got a really powerful set of toys to play with, and in today's video, we're going to break down the best ones. Let's get started. As cool as the seasonal artifact concept is, it's usually filled with a lot of mid-tier mods and a few that shine far above the rest. For this season, the best mod is Tyrant Surge. Dealing arc ability damage with a grenade, melee, or super will spawn a Warmind cell. That might not sound like much, and if that's the case, you haven't seen Warmind cells in action. Warmind cells are created by the mods that were introduced in the Season of the Worthy. These mods grant your 7th Seraph weapons a chance to spawn a Warmind cell explosive device when you kill an enemy. Different mods provide your cells with different characteristics in addition to the huge area damage they deal when destroyed. All the mods haven't released yet, but the ones that work well without a full loadout curated around them are Rage of the Warmind, Cellular Suppression, and Global Reach. Rage of the Warmind adds additional solar damage to the explosion of the cells. At their base, cells appear to deal kinetic damage, and the extra solar damage allows them to brute force their way through non-matching elemental shields a lot easier. They can also pop solar elemental shields with this mod. Cellular Suppression turns your cells into a ball of crowd control. When the cell is damaged, it releases a blast of void energy that suppresses nearby enemies. It also increases the cell's health, so you can shoot it more before you destroy it and trigger the default explosion. The suppression effect is fantastic because despite how powerful the Warmind cells are, they aren't strong enough to kill most mini-bosses with a single detonation. Sending out a burst of crowd control and damage simultaneously feels great against larger targets. Finally, Global Reach increases the radius of your cell's detonation and additional effects. The increase is a few extra meters in all directions, and it's worthwhile but not mandatory. There are a lot of other mods that I didn't mention, but those three feel like they fit in a loadout that hasn't had much work put into it. So what does all of this mean? Well, while I have Tyrant Surge equipped, if I hit something with one of my arc abilities, a red orb of death is going to pop out of them. When that happens, I'm going to shoot it, and it's going to go boom. The trick is going to be finding ways to increase my ability regeneration rate so that I can spawn more cells and wreak more havoc. For the rest of the video, we're going to dive into the Warlock and experiment with different setups that increase our arc ability regeneration rate. Now let's head out into the field and start experimenting. Alright, we are on our Warlock and we have to make a choice between one of the 3 Stormcaller attunements. I am going to go with the attunement of Conduction because it has the most powerful tools for cooldown reduction in its kit. Chain Lightning and Arc Web will allow me to get massive amounts of cooldown reduction if I place my abilities correctly. The Attunement of Control has really strong passive regeneration, but it doesn't get as out of control as the Attunement of Conduction, and the bottom branch, the Attunement of the Elements, has the worst cooldown reduction elements, but they are very consistent. But I want things to get out of control, so we're going to go with the Attunement of Conduction. We have Chain Lightning. This electrocuting melee ability chains lightning from the struck target to nearby enemies, and Arc Web. Enemies damaged by your grenade chain deadly lightning to nearby enemies. Each grenade or melee chain returns grenade energy, so we can snowball that out of control. I'm going to use the pulse grenade because each tick of the pulse grenade has the potential to chain lightning to nearby enemies. In higher difficulty content, that's going to mean a lot of cooldown reduction. Next up, we have to look at our armor and the different mods that we're using. For exotic armor, the choice is pretty obvious. The Crown of Tempest has an exotic armor perk that is specifically designed to reduce the cooldowns of arc abilities. Conduction Tines, arc ability kills increase the recharge rate of your arc abilities and extend the duration of storm trance. Simple and very effective. Well-placed pulse grenades are going to be huge for Conduction Tines. Now we can get into the nitty-gritty and talk about the individual armor mods that will help us out. Within the seasonal artifact, we have Lightning Strikes Twice, and this is a very cool mod. After throwing an arc grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc Final Blows extend the duration of this benefit. I haven't tested this extensively, but it feels like a mini version of Conduction Tines that works in the background to speed up your cooldowns even more. So we're snowballing things out of control pretty intensely right now. Next up on my gloves, I'm gonna throw in Momentum Transfer. Causing damage with your grenade reduces your melee cooldown. A very simple effect, but a powerful one on a build that is constantly throwing out grenades. Whenever you're constructing a build, if you're looking to improve your cooldowns or improve the effectiveness on your guns, the idea is to stack benefits on top of benefits on top of benefits, so that when you do one thing, it's helping multiple things and it's feeding into itself, and all of our stuff is feeding into itself right now. The last thing that would definitely be beneficial to me is shifting some things around on my class item and my boots and moving the positions of my mods around, because right now I have Lightning Strikes Twice on my class item and this is taking up 7 energy, but normally the class item is where I would put things like Enhanced Ashes to Assets for additional super energy on grenade kills, which can be very valuable to me since I'll be throwing out so many grenades. I can also equip Absolution. I can reduce all of my ability cooldowns whenever I pick up an orb, or keep it simple and use Innervation to reduce the grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb. But I'm gonna not shift things around too much because my builds are already kind of a mess. I'm just gonna leave Lightning Strikes Twice on the class item and then change Recuperation for Innervation. Now, I'm actually not going to make that many orbs today because I only have one of my 3 weapons masterworked, but if I was playing with other people, Innervation would be a lot more valuable to me. On that note, the choice of weapons is going to be very important for us as well. I'm using an arc primary weapon, the 7th Seraph VY7, and I'm doing this so I can keep the Lightning Strikes Twice benefits rolling even if I don't have an ability to throw out. Also, for my special weapon, I have the Perfect Paradox. Unfortunately, it is not possible to get this anymore. Feels bad, but there are primary and special weapon alternatives that can drop with Demolitionist. Kills with this weapon reduce the cooldown of your grenade, and activating your grenade ability reloads the weapon from reserves. So, with all of this stuff we've got going in our build, we should have infinite abilities. There realistically should not be a moment when I don't have an ability to throw out, and that means the Warmind cells are going to be everywhere. So what we're going to do to test this out is head into a Nightfall in the classic Nightfall playlist, because I don't want to get my teeth kicked in. Before we dive into the gameplay, I want to give a shout out to my newest patron, Wade J. You are freaking awesome for becoming a patron, and I greatly appreciate the support. But of course, I appreciate the support of everyone on this fantastic list. So guys, as always, thank you. It is tremendous, and what you do helps me with what I do. Now let's get back to the gameplay. Alright, we've landed in the activity and we've got a good smattering of enemies to deal with. So the first thing I want to do is get a well-placed grenade so Arc Web will trigger, but also I want to spawn my Warmind cell. Unfortunately, because I'm using a bunch of close-range weapons, I do have to get pretty close to the cell to blow it up, but once I do blow it up, the damage is more than worth it. And you're also noticing that when I throw out my grenade, I will get that buff stat boost. Unfortunately, it didn't trigger that time. I don't know why, but maybe it doesn't overwrite itself, not sure. But the next time I throw my grenade, you are going to notice that I received the buff stat boost in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Alright, we've got 2 Cyclops off in the distance. Gonna have to be very careful about those because they're gonna constantly shoot at me from range. Unfortunately, I don't have a grenade just yet, but now I do. So once I throw it out, I'll blow up the cell. Massive damage. I've got conduction times ×3. Stat boost is running. We're good to go. So if I do get a solar damage final blow, you'll see the stat boost effect gets extended, but because my abilities are full, that extra cooldown reduction is not going to matter. So stat boost plus conduction times is a little bit out of control, in a good way. So let's chuck this bad boy down there. We spawned a cell, and we blew it up. I got a bunch of kills, and stat boost is at 10 seconds. Conduction time is about to wear off, but no big deal. We're going to get it back in just a second. Now, I want to sneak up. I was going to sneak up to those guys so I could hit them with a melee, but they wanted to come towards me, so I didn't have to worry about doing any sneaking. Blow it up, please! There we go. Now, these Hydras are going to be the most difficult enemy for me to deal with because I have to deal with them from relatively close range, and that kind of stinks. I do have an anti-barrier weapon, so that's helpful. Let's throw another grenade out. We've got a cell on the field, but the Hydra shields usually mitigate the damage from the Warmind cells, which is unfortunate. So there are targets that I can't really deal with super effectively with the Warmind cells. But that's okay. I do have my super, and I'm honestly just going to use it to deal with him because he's very annoying. And you are going to notice that I can spawn multiple cells from a single enemy if they survive long enough. But the downside is you can't kill Warmind cells with your super, so this is where teammates would come into play. As I am shocking the battlefield with my tickle fingers, my teammates can blow up the Warmind cells that I leave behind to deal massive damage. Alright, we've got a honored gladiator on the field. We'll hit him with our pulse grenade and blow up the cell. Unfortunately, it's not enough to completely kill him because he's got a lot of health, but it did weaken him severely. Going down here, there are 2 more gladiators behind this wall, and they're going to jump out and try to swipe right on me, but I'm not going to let them. There we go. There is a Colossus across the way. I'll deal with him later. Let's throw a grenade in there. Let the arc web do its job. Once the shield is broken, then I'm going to blow up the Warmind cell. Because remember what I said, the Warmind cells appear to deal kinetic damage. So a lot of times I've noticed that that damage does not effectively go through shields. So when there are shielded targets in the mix, if I don't have something like Rage of the Warmind equipped, I'm going to try my best to remove the shields from whatever shielded enemies are present before I detonate the cell. He's looking up at the roof. That's weird. Ooh boy, he almost got me. We're going to have another great opportunity for arc web and the cell. So I'm going to drop this bad boy right here. I'm going to let the arc web do its job for a little bit. And actually, I don't even need to detonate the cell. That's the interesting thing about the Warmind cells and really well-placed abilities. When I'm using something like arc web and the pulse grenade, I don't always need the Warmind cell, and it just feels like extra icing on the cake. But then there are other times where the Warmind cell feels like it is absolutely necessary to my success or failure. So let's get that zappy boy going on. There are some dogs and more gladiators on the field. Detonation not enough to completely kill them, but it weakened them enough. Now this next grenade throw is going to be very valuable to me because there's a lot of dogs pushing into it. The arc web going to do its job. I've got a cell on the field. I'm not going to detonate it until we get more enemies close by. And I've actually got 2 cells on the field right now, which is a little crazy. So I'm just going to chill here and wait for the enemies to push into me, and then I'll blow up the biscuit. The biscuit has been blown up. So this is a moment where the Warmind cells are crucial to my damage output, but there are some instances where a pulse grenade is all I need. So for this guy, a pulse grenade is not going to be enough on its own, but it is going to be very helpful because it is going to remove the guy's shield, and then I can blast him a couple of times with my shotgun and the detonation of the cell. Feels good. This next bit, we have a bunch of shielded enemies to contend with. So we can see here the Warmind cell not going to be super effective at killing them because these are just red bars, but their shields are tanking through the bulk of the Warmind cell damage. We can see it again potentially if I place my pulse grenade well. So we got the cell down. We detonate it, and the guy with the shield survives relatively unscathed. So with that said, there are definitely pros and cons to the Warmind cell, and while it is a ridiculously powerful tool, it feels like it has some balancing agents, and the most overpowered thing about the Warmind cell is Tyrant Surge, but even that has a lot of restrictions attached to it. It can only be used with an arc subclass, so you're particularly limited there. It doesn't go through shields super well. So there's a lot of different things you have to consider when you are using these mods and trying to work with them. I should be able to get one more cell to spawn before my super ends. Yes, I can. I got a lot of these bad boys on the field, so let's blow them all up. That's 2. That's 3. We got another one. That's 4. Everybody gets a Warmind cell when I'm around. Oh, he's gonna kill me. Oh no, I'm gonna die. It's fine. I think I've showcased enough of how conduction times, momentum transfer, lightning strikes twice, and the Warmind cells can work together. They are very strong, but they have some restrictions to them. The base detonation, once again, does not go through shields effectively because it appears to be dealing kinetic damage. But there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with these things, and I would highly recommend experimenting them. Even if you're not using Tyrant Surge, you can get a decent number of them to spawn just by killing enemies with your 7 Seraph weapons. Something I didn't mention at the start of the video that I've kept as a nugget for anybody that made it this far is that Warmind cell spawns when you are killing enemies with 7 Seraph weapons aren't completely random. They are based on what appears to be a point system. When you kill certain tiers of red bar enemies, major enemies, and boss enemies, that will determine whether or not you are going to spawn a cell. From what I've noticed, it takes between 5 and 7 red bar enemy kills to spawn a cell. 4 major enemy kills will spawn a cell, and every time you kill a mini boss or boss level enemy with a 7 Seraph weapon, you will spawn a Warmind cell. And you can use that knowledge to your advantage. Something else that I wanted to mention is that it is very, very unfortunate that the mods Tyrant Surge and Lightning Strikes Twice and even Thunder Coil and Hammer of the Warmind are going away. The seasonal artifact brings some very cool mods to the player, and they allow the player to make some very interesting builds. Remember Breach Refractor and Breach Resonator from the previous 2 seasons? Those mods were very fun to incorporate into my build, and now I can't use them anymore. And in a couple of months, I'm not going to be able to use Tyrant Surge. All I'm saying is I wish the artifact would stay around forever. If you made it this far in the video, enjoy my opinion. You can do with it what you will. But with all of that said, we are going to wrap up here. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.